Welcome to the show, All Things Writing. I am your host, Brian the Writer. Let me take you on a journey through my writing life and introduce you to some of the amazing talent that exists in the writing world. Whether you are looking for a little advice or just to catch an interesting interview, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. All Things Writing starts now. Hey everybody, welcome to an episode of All Things Writing. I'm your host, Brian the Writer. I want to thank you for spending some time with us today. As some of you probably know, if you follow the show for any length of time, you'll know that we are moving by the end of the year to a more YouTube-based format. Reason being, and I hope you've heard me say this by now, reason being is financially, it's just a little bit more easier to deal with. It also puts sort of my messages in all in one place. I started realizing that it's actually easier for me to do videos than it is for me to do the regular podcast without the videos. That doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense when you think about it from a recording perspective, but the reality is it's just a little quicker for me to do it this way. It gets content out a little faster. I don't know. Plus, the 5 minutes with Brian thing is sort of taken off, and you guys seem to like that 5 minutes with Brian. If you are listening to this on a podcast platform other than YouTube, you may want to go check out my YouTube channel. Go to YouTube and then type in @Brian the Writer. That's Brian with a Y, all one word, Brian the Writer. And just like here, we're gonna try and do this in kind of a watch this, Brian the Writer. Bam. Go do that. I know I'm just being silly now. Go type that in. You're going to find my YouTube channel. You'll see my 5 minutes with Brian things, or five minutes with Brian segments that I do. I think I've got over like 100 and some odd videos out there now. All kinds of things. We do some teaching videos, which is actually more what this video is going to be about today. And just some fun things. I did one where actually I had a little too much to drink, and it was a 5 minutes with Brian video. A drunk 5 minutes with Brian, I think was what I called it. It was sort of silly. It was fun to do. It was me being whimsical and just fun. Okay, so the one thing we are going to lose, though, is we're not going to get the in-depth location stuff that I normally do when I talk about where people are watching us at, and people are watching or listening to the show and watching the show from all kinds of different places all over the world. And but no matter where you're getting this from, I really appreciate you spending time with us today. It means a lot to me. I say us. It's sort of like the Catholic us, if you will. It's all the people's, the people that have done interviews with me and whatnot. And but I really do appreciate you hanging out with us. Me, us, we, because this is actually your show, not just my show. It's really, really easy for me to sit here and say this is my show, but the reality is that you guys like this stuff, so you keep listening. So that's why I keep making content. Also, if there's anything you specifically want to see me talk about, please leave it in the comments section below, and I'll get to it. I'll bring it up. I'll talk about it on the air. I'll mention your name, by the way. Great fun. So, I wanted to talk about momentum. Momentum is, so if you look at 90% of all writers out there, we're not full-time writers. We have a day job. Most of us have a day job. I have a day job. Job that I get up every morning, I put on my clothes and I go to, and I have a boss, and I have people that work for me, and it's really cool. Everything goes great. I love what I do. I love the people I work with. I have no horror stories. I'm not desperate to get out of that situation, which is why I write. Nothing could be further from the truth. I'm really fortunate, and I know that. However, there is a trade-off to being an indie writer that is writing like part-time. Actually, it ends up sort of being like a second full-time job, but that's another matter. The issue is momentum, one of momentum. And that is what today's show is all about, momentum. How do you keep momentum going? There are some of you out there right now that are seriously like baby in one hand. You've got a clothes basket next to you, and you've got a load of laundry going over there, and dinner has to be done, but you don't even know what's going to be dinner. And this isn't just women, by the way. This is men that face these kinds of problems too. Um, what do you do? How do you get in time? How do you keep that forward momentum? There is two different topics that we talk about when we talk about writing. We talk about setting aside time to write. You guys have heard me talk about this before. Coffee. You guys have heard me talk about this before. Setting aside 15 minutes a day to write, at least, okay? Gradually upping that amount to the point where you're writing for half an hour, whatever the case may be. It may not be realistic for some of you. And it's not your fault. You are being a responsible adult, and being a responsible adult is just what we do. There's the other side of that coin, right? Where you are dealing with how do you keep your momentum from completely flagging and you stop writing altogether. Okay. So, first things first. What is your current work in progress? Your work in progress, I would argue that your work in progress should pull you to it like a bunch of a team of horses tied up to a carriage getting ready to run through the streets of France. Um, okay, it's a really weird thing to say, but it stands. You should be excited to write about your new thing, your next project. If you're not excited about that project, if you're not gnashing at or you're chomping at the bit to get to that thing that you desperately want to write, that story you want to get out there, maybe it's not the thing you should be writing. That is something I've wrestled with over the years. I like writing horror more than I like writing anything else, and I see that when I write. I'm more apt to put something aside that is not horror than horror itself. Where I'm at in writing today, I'm currently editing. I've got it back from the editor, the last Dramatic Dead book. Yeah, if you haven't picked up the first Dramatic Dead book, you should. Down here, go to Amazon, type in Brian Nowak, and you'll find it. You can just type in the Dramatic Dead book, you'll find it. This is the cover, or this is the cover right over there. Take a look at it and pick up a copy. Check it out. It's pretty good. I'm quite proud of it. But a mystery novel, I tend to want to put that aside before I will put aside horror. I love writing horror. I love doing wonderfully awful things to characters that I create because it is such a great umbrella to work under. I can do anything in horror, anything at all. And I mean, I could have two zombies fall in love and find out that their baby is a human, and then they have to hide that baby from all the other zombies that live in their communities. It's a great idea for a book, by the way. A human that grows up in a zombie community. But you could do something like something like that, or I could write any kind of other book. I could not. So I tried writing romance one time a long time ago. And what I found is I'm not a romance writer. I would have done anything to include reorganize the kitchen cabinets than work on that book. And it's not the book's fault. It's not really my fault. It's that I was trying to write a topic that I could not do. So really give yourself a little bit of space to think about whether or not you really should be writing in that medium or not. Maybe it's just not your jam. Maybe it's just not something you really, really want to be doing. Length. I know a lot of people that are short story writers. They love the short story format. I can't do it. I can write short stories. I've proven that time and time again, but I don't like doing it. I like novel length work. Mostly because I like to have room to explore that world. I like the character development to be sweeping, you know. Um, and I like to take somebody from being perfectly normal to absolutely crazy. Almost said a bad word, but I didn't. I kept it. Bat something crazy, but yeah, let it go. And actually, how do we know how crazy bats truly are? Do we? We don't. Anyway, all right. So now we are past that one issue with, what is the topic? What are we working on? Other things to momentum. I personally don't write very well at night. I know that anytime after 5 o'clock, I'm just not going to get good words down. That's why I tend to save afternoons and evenings for editing. Editing, I tend to be a little bit better because what I'll do, and I've talked about this in another video, is I have here the synonym finder, which is kind of my I need this book right next to me at all times. I know, I love this book because it allows me to go find words that my editor has already pointed out that I've used too much of. I do that work in the evening. I don't require, if I've used the word loved 4 times in a page, and I know that um, I know that I can drop 2 of them. So I've got 2 more cases. So you can use it once. What other words are there for love? Okay, so we go in the synonym finder and we find it, and but that doesn't require a ton of mental gymnastics on my part. Sometimes I have to rewrite whole sections, and that's not something I do good at evening time. Nope, it's got to save for the morning. I guess in some ways you can say that I'm lucky in a really weird sort of way. So I suffer from fibromyalgia. Those of you who followed me for any length of time know that that's something I talk about all the time, because it's something I need to talk about. Men get fibromyalgia as well as women. For many years, they thought it was only something that impacted women. They think it's an autoimmune disorder. Nobody really knows. It's great because nobody can figure out what it is. No money's thrown at research. My little plug, if you're a doctor, please, there's something you should research. But because I have fibromyalgia, sometimes I wake up stupid early in the morning. Morning's my jam. My brain's turned on, ready to go. That is my time I sit down and write. If I don't have to be at work for another hour and a half, why would I waste that time? I come downstairs, I write. First of all, it doesn't bother anyone else. It leaves me time to sit here and do what I have to do. Sometimes the dog even comes with me. Sometimes she prefers to stay in bed. Anyway, who knows? Who knows what makes up a terrier's mind? So when we are considering scheduling time, make sure you're dedicating that time to writing. It is very, very, very easy to get distracted as a writer. That is not your fault, by the way. You have an artistic mind. Studies show that artistic minds tend to like to drift from one thing to the next. We tend to see multiple avenues and multiple ways, different ways of looking at things, and that makes us highly distractible as a class of people. So consider that. And I would say that you need to make sure that you have space available to do your work. That is going to allow you to focus. Some of you will start writing, and then 5 minutes later, you find yourself endlessly scrolling Facebook. No. Consider turning off your internet connection. I would say go one step further. If you know you're going to write in the morning from 5:30 a.m. to 6:30 or whatever the case may be, have your internet pre-programmed to turn off. Make it so that you cannot get on there. Remember, I've said before, I'm not a big fan of using the internet for looking up things like definitions and synonyms and that kind of thing. No, use books for that. Don't use the internet. It can mislead you unintentional ways. It can be a great help, but it can also be a bit of a hindrance as well. So if you eliminate that, the internet, you're less likely to drift and go to other places. Um, and this is hard because I went through it myself. Kids. Hmm. Kids are great. I love kids. Very pro kid. However, they can get in the way sometimes, can't they? You really need to make it clear, especially if you have older children. Listen, this is mommy's time to write. This is daddy's time to write. When the door is closed, leave me alone. I saw, I got a sign at one of the shows. I point over here like you can see it. It's on my door. It says, "Shh, writer at work." I love it. It's a cool little sign. I can put it on my door whenever I'm working and tell people to leave me alone. I've also seen little signs you can buy. You can get them on like Amazon or whatever, or Etsy, and you can put them over your door and like remote control turn it on, and it'll have like it'll say at work or something like that, or on air or something, and that way people can know that you're working. You want to be left alone. That conversation with your family, I've said it before, is extremely important. You need to make sure they understand when you're working. They need to let you work unencumbered. It's very important. Now, the last thing I'm going to say, I think the last thing I really want to say in this short episode, I'm going to keep this episode short. Try to ensure that the place that you're working is comfortable. Now, this is going to sound a little bit strange, but if you need a stand-up desk, you can buy them out there fairly cheap. I actually have a stand-up desk. I don't use it as often as I should because the fibro makes it hard for me to stand up. But what the stand-up desk does do is it raises everything up a little bit higher for me, and that makes it a little bit more comfortable. I have an ergonomic keyboard. I have an ergonomic mouse. These things are useful to me because it cuts down on the amount of damage I can do to my hands during the course of a writing session. It makes it a little bit more comfortable to write. People don't think about it, but like writing like this or writing like this. So for those of you who can't see, this is another reason to go to YouTube because then you can see what I'm talking about. So writing with your hands kind of like parallel to each other versus at an angle, it makes a huge difference because your body was not really designed to have your hands sit at that parallel the parallel attitude to each other for a long period of time. It just doesn't really work. So strongly consider the keyboard type you're using in it. Now, why do I bring this up? And what does this have to do with momentum? Well, if you're in pain, it's going to psychologically make you less likely to want to sit down and write. It's going to cut into your momentum. So consider these things when you're thinking about writing, working on your writing project. How do you make it so that you are more likely to want to sit down and work on those projects? I guarantee if you think about them and you take a few things into consideration, it's going to help your momentum overall and really, really be useful to you. Okay, well, this has been Brian the Writer. I want to thank you for joining me today on All Things Writing. Check in next week or the week after. I don't remember which. I suppose I could actually look on my calendar because I literally have the calendar up and it will tell me magically because that's what calendars do. The 29th of the month, we are going to have an interview with the author Tom DeWitt. And Tom's an amazing guy. He is the author of let's see, I know it's called the Soup series, and he's coming out with a new novel shortly, and he's going to talk about it. He's going to talk about the other books. It's going to be a great interview. You're not going to want to miss it. Well, that's about it for All Things Writing. This is Brian the Writer signing off. This has been another amazing episode of All Things Writing. If you heard something that got your wheels spinning, check out the links in the show notes. Also, please follow the show and remember to leave those reviews. Those simple acts of kindness mean the world to us. Hop on over to briannowak.com, and that is Brian with a Y, and check out my latest novels. I'm on Amazon or wherever you buy your ebooks. And as a reminder, the music you heard on the show today was used under license from the artist Ryan Ancona. Thanks for listening to the show and have a blessed day.